Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. We are beginning a 10-part series today that's going to take us up towards training camp. And we're going to begin digging on 10, I'm trying to know how I want to word it. I guess I would say 10 issues. 10 issues facing the Raiders going into training camp. There are 10 big ones, and we're going to address all 10 in succinct order so you know what's my mindset, what am I looking at, what am I expecting, what am I thinking as the Raiders head towards training camp in the beginning of what should be a very big season foundationally, not for the franchise over its history, but for the Las Vegas part, especially laying what I think is going to be a foundational season for the franchise in Las Vegas. Today, we want to talk about issue number 1, which is the offensive line. This is a team that wants to run a football, and you're not going to be able to run a football without an offensive line that's solidified. Let's talk about it for a moment. Colton Miller is your left tackle, one of the top offensive left tackles in all of the league. He is up for a contract, should get a new deal by the start of the season. Should. Not predicting he will. I know that the Raiders have had initial talks. I've already talked about what I'm hearing about those talks. That deal should get done. If the Raiders let this go into the season, if I'm Colton and it goes into the season, then I think and say, no, I'll wait. Make them redshirt me. Make them redshirt me. I'm not redshirt me. Make them franchise me. I don't know that the Raiders would. I would think they would, but there is a huge market for him. It is a massive market. Do you remember all year I kept talking to you about Robert Spillane? And we had Robert on this podcast. And I talked to you about Robert Spillane. And I just gave you the real skinny on Robert Spillane. Okay, I told you how big of a market was going to be. People were surprised at the money that he got, but not people who watch this podcast. There's a bigger market for Colton. A much bigger market. And I think there is a team in the Raiders division that would love to sign him. Just leave it right there. I think it would be a massive mistake for the Raiders to not re-sign him. But you've got him as your left tackle. Solid, healthy, ready to go. At left guard, you then have Jordan Meredith, who is your number 1 guy right now. Okay? Your center is Jackson Powers Johnson. Your right guard is Alex Kappa. He's in there. He's pretty locked in. And then your right tackle is Delmar DJ Glaze, the Mule. They need time to gel. Now let's go over and talk about Meredith. He's going to battle because Dylan Parham's going to get every chance to compete everywhere. He can play right tackle. Well, no, he really can't. But he can play the 3 interior spots. But coming out of minicamp, I don't see him unseating Meredith. I don't see him unseating Jackson Powers Johnson or Delmar DJ Glaze the Mule. Don't see it. So then the question the Raiders have to ask themselves is, are we comfortable with Caleb Rogers? And do we keep Dylan because he's a high-quality player? There's going to be a trade market for him. I personally, because he's so young, would not trade him. But he's going to have another deal coming. And so they may have to make the decision, listen, we can't pay him starting money. He is a starter. Maybe they make that move. Again, I'm not advocating for it. I think Dylan Parham's a really good player in this league. But this is a question that good teams have to face. They have to face it. That's why the Steelers lost Spills to the Raiders. And then the Raiders unjustifiably let him go. Not blaming Spytek. You all know the reasons. I've already talked about them. But there's a Dylan Parham issue, okay? Now, they may be sitting there thinking, because Grant was a highly sought after guy. So the Raiders may say, okay, you know what? We're willing to roll the dice, see what we got in Grant. And if we don't like what we have in Grant, which I think they will, then we franchise him maybe to get Grant one more year, or maybe try to work out a 3-year deal. But here's the problem. If you're going to roll the dice in Colton Miller, then you're risking not having him long term when you could trade him and get something of real value. That's the dilemma they have. Dylan Parham, the same way. You know he's going to have a deal coming. And so if you don't think you're going to pay him, you trade him. But it's a big risk. It's a very big risk because you don't win championships without depth. It's a catch-22 for the Raiders. Now, if you really like Caleb, then you're like, okay, listen, Jordan's young. Delmar, well, we'll get to Delmar in a minute, but Jordan's young. Alex Kappa's not. So if you're not sold on Rodgers, or maybe he just doesn't get enough time to show you what he can do, and listen, I think he's going to be really good, then do you try to sign Parham to a 2 or 3-year deal? You got Rodgers then to develop. That's what I would do. I wouldn't let Parham go. But I'm not the general manager. Jackson Powers Johnson, this guy is a complete stud. I'm going to make a big prediction here. He'll be in the top 3 centers in the league by the end of 2026. Athletic, strong, tough as nails. Man, I love that kid. I love everything about Jackson Powers Johnson. Then you go over to Alex Kappa, long in the tooth. Okay, but you get an older guy, solid, great experience to either develop Caleb or sign Dylan to a couple-year deal. And the question is going to be, do you get Alex who struggled or Alex who was really good? Now, they believe he's healthy and they believe he's all set to play at a high level, so I have no reason to doubt it. But that's the question you run into. That's the dilemma that you face. That's the quagmire or the quandary that you have to face. What do you do there? Then you go out to the mule. Delmar DJ Glaze. Young guy, it's just coming now. I told you guys how he just blew up at the Senior Bowl, how highly rated he was. It was a great draft pick by Tom Telesco. He was not a good draft pick. He was a great draft pick. And let me just say this while we're sitting here. Give Telesco some credit. He left some really talented young players on this roster. Very talented players on this roster. But Delmar just matured every week in front of our eyes. I think he is one of the best. I don't think he is the best. I think he's one of the top 5 young tackles in this league. Left or right. That young man is big promise. Again, we already talked about Caleb. We already talked about Grant. We talked about Dylan, excuse me. Don't forget Thayer Mumford. And it's not like those are the only guys on the team that play. But the point is there's a wealth of talent. So they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do. They're going to have to get their game plan solidified once they see how guys are going to perform. About contracts, I still get the feeling either right before camp or somewhere close to the season, you're going to see Colton get done. Not because I have any insight. I mean, I know they've talked, but I just can't imagine the Raiders letting him go. I understand wanting to get the best deal that they can, but you're going to send a really bad message to your locker room if you let a Spills go and you let a Colton Miller go. Young players and players like to see their teammates getting taken care of who perform. You have to. Again, a mulligan to Spytek on losing Spills. There won't be a mulligan on losing Colton Miller. And so once you get that solidified, and I think it is, by the way, I think they know the Mule, Colton, Kappa, Meredith, Jackson, Powers, Johnson. I think they know that. Now, because they're going to run so much this year, they're going to work that play action pass. They're going to tack down the field. That offensive line has got to find harmony quick. That offensive line is going to have to get on the same page quick. That offensive line is going to have to learn to work in unison. They're going to have to be like those girls in the Olympics, the synchronized swimmers. They're going to have to do that quick. If the Raiders are going to have the success they need to have, they're going to do it with that offensive line leading the way. Big issue here. I think the talent's there, and by the way, I expect them to. I wouldn't have predicted 9 wins if I didn't think they could, and I didn't think they would. But it's still gelling as fast as they can. Just gelling as fast as they can. They have got to get all of their timing together. They're working together. You know, you got the Mule and Jackson, Powers, Johnson, but then you throw Cap in the middle. You got Meredith and Colton, so that is not going to be as big of an adjustment. But that Kappa spot's going to be. Guys got to learn to lurk together, pull together. You got to learn guys spacing. I'll never forget one time, Rick DeMulling, who's a buddy of mine, played with Peyton at the Colts, was picked up as a free agent by the Lions. And when he would pull, he would swing himself out farther than the guy he replaced. So in training camp a couple of times, he got his feet run on, or a couple of times he ran over tackles or a center. So it's just learning spacing. Those are all things that are going to be learned in training camp. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is a massive, massive issue facing this Detroit Lions team. A humongous issue. And so as you look at this team and you study this team and you analyze the issues on this team, issue number 1 that we're talking about today is without a doubt the offensive line. Hey, do me a favor. Follow me on Threads and IG when you go to @HondoSR. Please additionally follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, when you go to @HondoCarpenter. And as always, we're pumping out the most and the best information covering your Raiders at si.com/NFL/Raiders. Thanks, everybody.